All right, I'm excited to finally introduce our guest speaker, distinguished scholar, educator, artist, writer, archivist, performer, music enthusiast, and collector of sweet, sweet vinyl, whose work explores Black culture, gender, and sexuality with a focus on literature, rhetoric, and media, Dr. Derrais Carter. He's written, presented, and produced work contributing to Black cultural studies, Black queer and trans studies, pop culture, Black critical theory, and African American cultural studies. Dr. Carter earned his PhD in American Studies from the University of Iowa and has taught at the University of Arizona, the Pacific Northwest College of Art, and Portland State University, and is currently Associate Professor of Africana Studies at the University of Massachusetts. Throughout his career, he has focused on exploring the complexities of identity, history, and social justice, addressing issues timeless and urgent. His scholarly work has been published in numerous prestigious journals, including the Journal of African American Studies, Black Camera and International Film Journal, and MC, Journal of Media and Culture, and he has contributed chapters to several edited volumes that examine the nuances of race, identity, and cultural representation in contemporary society. He's the recipient of many awards, many awards and grants, including a Fulbright Scholar Grant and a National Endowment for Humanities Grant. Dr. Carter is the creator of Black Revelry in honor of the Sugar Shack, published in 2021, an artist book album built around Ernie Barnes' painting, The Sugar Shack of 1971. Beyond his individual accomplishments, Dr. Carter is deeply committed to mentoring the next generation of scholars and activists. His work in fostering diversity and inclusion within academia and advocating for more inclusive curricula is honestly just as impressive as his research. Today, Dr. Carter will be speaking about his current projects and that research in connection with Devan Shimoyama's works, and we're incredibly fortunate to have him here with us. So please help me welcome Dr. Derrais Carter.
I might have to hold it. It's good I got rings on, okay? It's like try to give people a pop of something. And always, if you can, wear a bulky pinky ring so that it drags your hand down a bit when you point. Oh, it's cool. So fancy. Y'all, I'm a Leo. Bear with me. Very extra. I try to be deeply unserious, especially at professional functions. I'm like, y'all, we're here geeking out, just being full on nerds and trying to share what we fixate over with other people in hopes that they will ride with us, okay? So hopefully today, y'all will ride with me. No? Just be curious, be open, and I don't know, we'll chat it up, okay? Cool. All right, so I want to begin first by thanking the crew here. Ulrich gang, all day. Ulrich or Rich, okay? Ulrich or Ulrich, which one? Ulrich. Oh, even better, okay? Y'all have been so fantastic. Y'all, right, exactly. Y'all have made coming here so easy. Like I left class, went straight to the airport yesterday, and then flew here, slept down last night. And then it was just like a day of full, vibrant, amazing conversation. So I am truly thankful. And also, you know, y'all, have y'all seen the show? Have y'all seen Devan's show? It is absolutely beautiful. I still, I don't know that I'll ever hit a point where I'll have all the words that I want or need to describe what I encountered there, and I'm absolutely okay with it. I'm much more interested in just living with the work and seeing what comes up. Okay? So today, you know, we were doing some of the tech stuff earlier, and for a brief window, you all could see the madness that is my desktop and a couple of screens, which I feel like that makes us a little bit closer now. You know, like there's an intimacy that comes with people seeing what's on your desktop. And the 50,000 tabs that I have open right now. And so I hope this is a safe space for exploration. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start us off with a little bit of music. And first, you all know who Aretha Franklin is? Yes? Okay, cool. If not, we're gonna ease on into tonight by listening to one track from her 1972 album, Young, Gifted, and Black. Yeah, we'll start there. Let's see. If y'all would please close your eyes as the song plays, okay? If your body starts to rock from side to side, it's okay, it's supposed to do that. It's Aretha. Just let it happen, okay? We're not going there yet. Fade us out right there. Okay, you can open your eyes. Inhale, exhale, do all the things. Okay. So part of the reason why I love this song is because, no? Never out? Perfect, thank you. One of the reasons I love the song is because Aretha Franklin manages to give us this really beautiful philosophical proclamation. In that statement, you are young, gifted, and black, and your soul is intact. It's not that much earlier in a historical sense that W.E.B. Du Bois at the end of the 19th century is theorizing that the problem of the 20th century would be the problem of the color line. Here at this point, essentially helping us understand how it is that Black Americans are positioned to think about what's happening in an intercommunal sense, and how that is constantly brushing up against the hostility of an anti-Black Western world. And so there's something absolutely stunning to me that happens when Aretha, okay, Reverend C.L. Franklin's daughter from Detroit, can sit in a studio, or even better, sit on a stage and sing a song that anticipates your arrival. Sing a song that's almost like clearing the way sonically for you to be as present as you can possibly be. Right? Nina Simone's version, we don't even have the time. Like, y'all, it's just, have you ever felt deeply affirmed by something that a stranger has said to you? Raise your hands if you have. Has anyone ever given you a compliment? Raise your hands. Isn't that like a trick question? No, it's like, no, it's a compliment. It's a compliment. Has anyone ever held you in a way that helped you feel secure and safe? Raise your hands if you have. If not, I got a dope therapist. She is absolutely amazing. Okay? I like to begin with Aretha because I really, really love the idea of sitting in the dark and taking in the voice. Right? The cover of this album, right? It's like Aretha in front of a bunch of stained glass, like it's giving church, and I'm a whole heathen, okay? But there is something absolutely stunning about the sheer force of at least me being delusional enough to be like, oh, she's singing directly to me in this moment. I will put on headphones, and the big, bulky ones, I want to like be in an Aretha Franklin surround, because nothing else can interrupt it. Nothing else can cut through it. I want us to begin there because stepping in the rituals, I felt some version of that. I felt some version of this artist who I have not met. One day I'm gonna shake Devan's hand, hopefully, or I can hug them. I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna go down, but at some point I'm like, can we be friends? And I want that in part because there is this really gorgeous and exciting energy about, let's see if it's going to advance for me. I just want to pause to say, there's something to be said for the hostility of technology. Right? So there's that. It's this moment this morning, standing before these three works and just trying to take in the entire scene. Take in the colors, take in the textures, and even at times project myself into these moments, right? Try to envision how it is that I too could be sitting. Your girl loves to go to Berlin, okay? But I imagine like sitting in Berlin and just lounging in a park, drinking with friends, geeking out about art, right? It is absolutely impractical, but if you're going to saunter in linen and be footloose and fancy free overseas, why not, right? If you're going to immerse yourselves in some dreamy landscape like this. If you want to be sexy with a torch and a whole bunch of snakes around you, right? Like all of these realities are definitely possible, right? I feel like every time walking past a piece in this show, we get these gorgeous, gorgeous opportunities to be whoever the hell we want to be, right? We get to be caked with glitter and sequins. I get to imagine myself with hair again. It's been a long time. Okay? But I also get to think about how it is that art becomes this really beautiful and can be an extremely gorgeous vehicle for building the worlds that we want to be in. One of my favorite things about that is like, it's a world that doesn't have to serve anybody but you, and that's okay. It could serve 5 people, and that's absolutely fine. As far as I'm concerned, the notion of a world is relative. We live in many worlds at once, and if a world is defined by our relationship to others, then we live in a multiverse. Absolutely. And part of that is largely about us figuring out who and what we're going to prioritize. We can be in a space by the water. We can take in libations. We can just lay among the flowers. We can do all of that. And people can look upon us and think that we ain't doing, is this family friendly? Can I cuss? Okay, I'm gonna keep it to a minimum. But people might look at us and think that we ain't doing shit. And I'm like, and that's okay. Because so much of what we get to delight in is not just like in a Tricia Hersey sense notion of rest, but we get to figure out what it is that relaxation looks like. We get to figure out what it is that being held in public looks like and feels like. It seems like such a small, small thing, but it's absolutely significant. And so to walk into a show and have your first thought be, I wish I could hug the artist, made me go directly to Aretha, because that was the closest I could get to hugging the artist. I'll say this now, in public while it's being recorded. Blessings to Devan in advance, who will be getting an email from me and probably a DM or a couple of DMs and the whole nine. In large part because this work reminds me to reach out to artists. When I teach, I sometimes have a final assignment for my students, and it is to write a 2-page letter to one of the writers or the artists whose work we've encountered that term. It doesn't matter if they're still on this plane or not. The whole push is to get them to understand that class is not simply about getting in there, doing the readings, passing the tests, and trying to remember a whole bunch of facts or execute a whole bunch of exercises. We're like, no, part of the push is to figure out what kind of words or what words will sustain you in this life. What is the work that is going to help you stay afloat? What is the work that you want to breathe into your body over and over and over? And even better, what is the work that takes you immediately to your group chat, or makes you hit up a parent, or makes you hit up an old friend just so you could talk with them about it? And sometimes, if I'm really lucky as a very nosy instructor, you can see a moment in a classroom where two students really start to recognize one another. Years ago when I taught in Oregon, I was teaching a Black popular music course, and the theme was ratchetness and disrespectability. And so we were all thinking about how we can use Black popular music to grapple with notions of humanity, right? What happens when you are not the proper political subject? What happens when you are not the ideal subject to be the target of racial scorn, hatred, and ridicule? A number of my students will bring up the difference between Rosa Parks and Claudette Colvin, and then they would bring up respectability politics, and I'm like, yes, that's fine, but historians have told us over the last 10 or so years that Rosa Parks was an absolute radical, right? When she was in the South as an NAACP investigator during the Civil Rights Movement, we're talking 11 years before, folks knew King's name. King was a baby, and she was getting the testimony of Black women who had survived assaults in the South. But history would have us, or I'm gonna say historians, it ain't gonna be history with a capital H. Some historians would have us believe that she was just a little older Black woman who didn't want to have any kind of fuss. She just wanted to get home from work that day. They don't talk about her as a political strategist. They don't talk about her as somebody who was in league, with multiple generations of artists to absolutely upend the US South. And so in this class, we're working through those kinds of moments, and we're talking cash shit about respectability. But there's this moment where I turn to students and I say, look, we can critique, but are you at the point where you feel as though you have a skill set to build a world, to affirm, to help us understand what other kinds of connections are present? And so we turn to Audre Lorde and uses of the erotic is power. The day I taught that work, or I should say the day my students discussed it in that class, there were two students, I won't say their names here, but there were two students who had this interaction that stayed with me. One was sitting in the second row, the other one was sitting in the third row. And so the one in the third row asked a question about the text. The one in the second row turned and looked at them, and they looked back, and I'm sitting there in class, I had to look down and just start taking notes, because I was like, they see each other. They see each other in this moment. And so a few months later, I leave, I take another job, I come back to Oregon. I'm in a bar one night with some friends. Music's cute, it's wonderful. We got a little corner seating situation. Again, Leo, loved it. I go to the bar to get another drink, and that student that was in the third row comes up, and at the time I was going by DA. And they say, hey, DA, first, I want to buy you a drink. Second, I need you to know that when I returned to school, I thought I'm a non-traditional student, I'm older than all the other folks that I'm in class with, and on a personal level, I didn't think I would have another great love in this life. And then in this class, I met this person, and they had built this wonderful, beautiful, Black, queer, trans love story. And I often go back to that because I'm like, there is no Qualtrics survey, there is no evaluation, there is no document that can capture that moment. It is absolutely ineffable, and I'm just honored that they would share it with me. And so I try to be as sensitive and considerate as possible when it comes to engaging not just popular culture, but also art, in large part because we need it so much. And we don't always need it for the explicit structural political things. No, we need it because sometimes, and we learned this especially in the last few years, sometimes we just need touch. And it's not always physical. Sometimes it is a color that welcomes you into a space and makes you want to dwell there. Sometimes it's an image that you just want to stare at and then walk away from and then come back to, and then take a few pictures and then walk away and then come back to it, right? It's like Sonia Sanchez, the poet. You all know Sonia Sanchez's work at all? Black Arts Movement poet? Okay, if not, y'all gotta Google her. She's gonna come back in this piece, I promise. Sonia Sanchez has this really great moment in the documentary Pieces I Am about Toni Morrison, where she's talking about reading one of Morrison's novels. And she was like, I get to a moment where I just grab the book, I slam it shut, and I throw it across the room. I don't know if you've had that kind of relationship with a book. If not, I hope you do, and I hope you have it soon. Because she's like, I close it, I throw it across the room, and then I get up, I walk across the room, pick it up, and then I hold it close as I walk down the stairs. This poet has a whole ass relationship with a work of fiction. And it's that, right? It's that kind of shift in the body. It's that kind of thing that makes you turn this fantastic little paperback object into the thing that you cherish the most, even if only for a few minutes. And so I keep trying to find ways to make these linkages between what it is that I'm fixating about when it comes to archival text and Black cultural memory, and more importantly, using art or Black art as a way to do that. So that said, I can't tell you a bunch of authoritative stuff about this art. I won't do it. I ain't committed to it. That is not my project. My project is to help you all understand some of the ways that this art prompts me to return to my own archive, or I'm gonna call it the bootleg archive of cultural materials and text. Cool? How we doing so far? Yeah? All right, dig it. Can I play a little bit of music for y'all before we jump into this next thing? Yeah? All right, dig it. All right, y'all, so how many of you have heard of Marvin Gaye? Yeah? Okay, nice. So Marvin, about 50 years ago, dropped this album called I Want You. There's a messy backstory. The folks is gonna be at dinner, I'll tell you, okay? I'll tell you at dinner, because we're gonna need to talk about it. We're gonna need to yell about it and be scandalized. But in this moment, we're gonna start with the title track from that album. Okay? was so extra. It's so extra. I feel powerful in that moment. It's like, so I wanted to play this song, but not give you all the visual for it, in part because I just love how absolutely sensual this track is. Like, this is an album that was fueled by lust, cocaine, and affair in the 1970s, right? Marvin Gaye and his, well, not his wife, but his girlfriend, okay? So this is where it gets messy. Y'all gotta know I'm an archival gossip, okay? So Marvin Gaye was at the time married to his boss's sister, okay? And one of his bosses at Motown. So his boss, Berry Gordy, sister Anna Gordy, also helped invest in the company, was helping run the show. Anna, 17 years his senior, okay? So she was, what, 51, Marvin was 34, cool. He meets this girl named Janice a couple years before this album comes out. And Janice ain't 51, she ain't quite 20 either. And I'm like, that's where I give y'all the mess at dinner. But what I will tell everybody who's here is that these two hung out for a couple years. Marvin opens up this studio, because at the time, Motown, which had been based in Detroit in the 70s, moved out west. So they had Mo West. They were like getting into film and the whole nine. It's like, good on y'all, Barry, make your money. Marvin decides he's gonna open up Marvin's Room Studio. This studio was also a club. It was also an apartment. Okay, so upstairs, there was the apartment where he lived, not with his wife, but his girlfriend, Janice. They had a baby and a toddler. Okay, Frankie and Nona were in there. And in the apartment, they had a two-way mirror that overlooked, we're gonna call it the social space downstairs. They cultivated what I call in a project that I'm finishing now, freaky domesticity. There was this way where they're like in the studio recording stuff. It's Marvin, Jan, and Leon Ware, who the I Want You album belonged to him before Marvin heard it, and Berry Gordy was like, I really want Marvin back in the studio. I will buy it from you. Okay. It is so difficult for me to comprehend, one, the custom bed that they had made for the studio, but also the apartment, and also these two kids, and also, you know, it's a club and also a studio. It's a palimpsest that I simply cannot fathom in the most practical way possible, right? But somehow in this album, all of that gets wrapped up into this beautiful set of chords, right? It's also, it's chords, it's percussion, and it's this beautiful, soulful, funky, interesting album that was panned by a number of folks when it first dropped in the mid-70s. But then a few years later, Motown 25 happens. Some of you in this room may recall Motown 25 as the 25th anniversary of Motown Records. It is also the night that Michael Jackson debuted the moonwalk on national TV. Right? I missed it, wasn't there for it live, but through the genius of the internet, YouTube, okay? You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. But what fascinates me is that for years I would hear folks refer to that event as the night the moonwalk, right, was introduced to all of these audiences. But for me, that's not the moment. Like, I'm a crush hard on Marvin all day. Never got to meet him, RIP to a real one. Thinking about you. Now, I'm like, whenever I think about Motown 25, I think about a couple of things. One is that this is a man who did not like to dance. And I'm just like, tall, lean build, them shoulders that would not quit, and the jawline that's like, oh, I just want to kiss you on the cheek. Now, there's all of that, but I also think about the shyness that he moved with, and the fact that for Motown 25, this song, which has as the cover image for the album, Ernie Barnes' Sugar Shack painting, and I'll like put it up here for y'all in a little bit. Right now, it's just about the sound. It's that Marvin, who is at this performance, does not appear on stage when the song plays immediately following the Michael Jackson set. It's that what we see is a slowly rotating platform that reveals a tableau vivant of the cover of Marvin Gaye's album. And it's all dancers who are dressed like the Black folks who are painted in this piece. And when they step off of that platform, they move like brushstrokes. That's the only way I can describe it. There's a way that they drag their limbs that is so deeply poetic. And what I love the most about it is the last thing they needed on that stage was the guy who sang the song. There was no way he can compete with it. Especially if he already didn't like being in his body and cutting the rug a little bit, then there was no way in hell, even if he was standing at center stage just planted, there was no way he could match the energy of all these professionally trained dancers. And so I'm like, how do we inhabit that kind of space when we write and think about this text? And what's more, what might we produce if we, say, for instance, try not to consider or overthink what Marvin might have been trying to do, but instead consider what it animates in us? For me, going to that performance means considering, well, for the painting, for the atmosphere, I want to know what people were eating, what they were drinking. I want to know who they were trying to meet up with. Because if you listen to the entirety of the I Want You album, this is the album of a man who is clearly trying to sing his way into a painting. Like, there are songs, Since I Had You, absolutely doesn't. Soon I'll Be Loving You Again, he envisions. This man is envisioning multiple times inhabiting the world of a painting and having that be the space where he reunites with Janice, right? He imagines them living in this world where they were lovers in the past. And then they went their separate ways and lived their lives. And then they come back home to a neighborhood dance and they see each other. I'm always so extra. I'm like, and I was a latchkey kid, so I grew up watching a whole lot of movies and romanticizing all of this stuff. So I'm like, I imagine, Marvin comes in, Jan's on the opposite side of the venue. He's heard that she's in town, but he hasn't seen her yet. It's been 15, 20 years, maybe, we don't know. And I constantly wonder about the moment where this wallflower of a man finally cranes his neck enough to peer through the crowd and just get a glimpse, right, of this woman who he hasn't seen in years and years and years. And I'm like, this is the kind of chaotic, extra, energy that he brings to this album. And mind you, they're taking breaks to go upstairs. And then they come right back down. They're feeling that inspired. David Ritz, Marvin Gaye's biographer, indicates as much. And Ritz also did After the Dance. He helped Janice Hunter write her memoir later on. So there's this really compelling way that even with this one painting, we get to kind of wade through a whole host of lives, encounters, moments, and experiences. And so today, looking at Devan's work, I kept wondering, especially with the tarot pieces, like Joe, the tarot pieces are so good. I went a few different places. One was Alexis Pauline Gumbs's Black Feminist Oracle deck, right? But I also considered the moments that we create for ourselves so that we can sit back, process, and reflect and figure out how it is that we need or want to regroup so that we can do whatever the hell it is that we need and want to do for ourselves. We all don't have Berry Gordy willing to buy an album for us. We do not have our own personal Marvin's Room studio that is also a club and also an apartment so that we can hang out with our girlfriend, our 2 kids, and continue to fight with our wife. We don't have all of that. And if you do, don't tell us. This is, in fact, not a safe space for you. But for me, there's so much wrapped in it around having to deal with life, right? So much of what pulls me back to this man with this, again, a silhouette that won't quit, and a coolness that is so striking. There is, if you find yourself on Al Gore's internet, there is a clip of Marvin Gaye singing this song, I Want You. This man is laying on a sofa. It's a full band rehearsal right there. And I think he got a tracksuit on. And I wish I could float to the side like a magician, because he's resting on an elbow with a mic just sitting there. It is so unnervingly casual, you can't help but to be very petty and also impressed, right? And so there's like, when I was trying to make sense earlier of the colors, the textures in Devan's show, and I kept going back to luxury. I kept going back to adornment. I kept going back to embellishment. I kept going back to all of these things that we will take on, these traits, these objects, these artifacts that we will absolutely place on our bodies or surround ourselves with, just so we can radiate like the sun over and over and over. Marvin had charisma, absolutely. But he also figured out a way to sound that charisma. And he sounded it so much that we can't help but to live with it over and over and over. Now, that said, a brief note, this is my first time saying it publicly and in a recorded sense. If any of y'all ever go, into film and media production, please do not use sexual healing for some campy romantic sex scene, Can we not do that? I want to implore you all to institute a 20 to 30 year moratorium on that practice, in part because there is so much more in the catalog, but there's also a lot of messy stuff too. And so with mess, because I don't want to stay with Marvin too long, and I got a few other slides that I want to share with y'all. One of the things that Devan talked about in his artist talk was vampires. Anybody a fan of vampires? Cool. If you identify as a vampire, tell me after the sun goes down. When Devan mentioned Vampirum and also Vamp, shout out to Grace Jones, I just went straight to blaxploitation films. Are y'all familiar with blaxploitation at all? No? Okay. Quick and dirty primer. So, 1970s, early 70s, there is a whole set of films. Well, let me start with the fact that Hollywood went broke. They was trying to sell Dorothy's slippers from The Wizard of Oz to make money. That's how broke some of the studios were. Around that time, Melvin Van Peebles creates a film called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. And it is an exercise in guerrilla filmmaking. It's a monumental success. And it happens, I think he releases that maybe 71, the year before. Gordon Parks, whose papers are here at Wichita State University, releases the film Shaft with a fantastic score by Isaac Hayes from Memphis. If you haven't spent much time with Isaac Hayes' catalog, this man will give you an 18-minute song like it's nothing. He gave us orchestral Black popular music in the 1970s. Like, it is so deeply excessive and absolutely stunning. So this is the context that we're operating in. We've got Hollywood finally figuring out, y'all know what? Black people go to the movies. And since they go to the movies and we broke, we should try to sell some movies to Black folks, because maybe we'll make some money. So they come up with a whole crop of films. And I mean, they're churning them out. This moment is so deeply significant. It is so deeply significant in large part because the guy who coined the term blaxploitation, Junius Griffin, he was a Motown executive. He did PR for Motown. When they went west, he went west. There is a different gossipy story that, again, dinner conversation, I got y'all. But the thing we all need to know about Junius Griffin is he is the one that coined the term blaxploitation. He released this op-ed in Variety magazine, and he said, these films, this new crop of films, are Hollywood exploiting Black people. I couldn't figure out for the longest time why I took issue with that, like that description. And it was because the agency was taken away from Black people. All I could think about was the fact that for this one brief, unique moment in American history, it's like 5-6 years, maybe, with that film cycle, you had the most outlandishly varied depiction of Black folks in film. I think, at least by my count currently, and if y'all know another reference, holla at your girl, because I need to update the notes. The first depiction of a Black trans woman in film is in blaxploitation film, which, mind you, these are films, this whole set of films were written off. It's just lazy, cheaply produced movies that were all a marketing ploy to get black dollars into white hands. And I feel like it's one of the most dismissive ways to talk about a vibrant cultural moment where you have films that now have films featuring black people that also have soundtracks by black artists, right? And some folks will say, well, you know, Superfly, that was one of those films. Curtis Mayfield did the soundtrack for it. They would say, well, Superfly like glorified drug dealing and pimps and the whole nine. But then the soundtrack did this counter work that a number of critics for 50 years have read as overtly political. And I'm like, that is absolutely fine. However, for 50 years, scholars have talked about maybe 20 to 30 of those films. There's over 300. There's over 300 films. And so I consider the fact that while most of the scholarship will say things like, well, you know, the ticket sales indicate that black people were interested in XYZ themes. Whenever I read that now, I go to one conversation that happened between two black women writers, Nikki Giovanni, who recently passed, and Margaret Walker. Nikki Giovanni was visiting Walker in Mississippi. They sit and had a set of conversations that were later transcribed and published as a book called Poetic Equation. There's one moment, there's maybe like 2-3 pages in this entire book where they're talking about that recent set of films that we consider blaxploitation. And Nikki Giovanni says something to the effect of, you know, it's just so silly that they would come up to these conclusions based on the fact that black people go to the movies, right? Like the movie, she was saying that the movies that black folks are going to see didn't have any kind of direct correlation to like a political acumen. And she said in the most practical way, if I'm going to the movies, I'm going to neck. And if I'm gonna be in there necking, which y'all, she going in there to make out. She's like, if I'm going to the movies to make out, I don't want John Wayne on the screen behind me, I want a brother. And I'm like, at that moment, I'm like, can you even? This poet really sat and said, no, I'm gonna go there and I'm going to make out. And I'm like, that moment flies in the face of 50 years of established criticism about a whole set of films. And I think it's one of the most beautiful interventions I could have possibly imagined. There's no lit review that I have come across that was like, yeah, and low key, Nikki Giovanni says she just be going there to make out, and y'all are overthinking what she's invested in when she goes to the movies, right? All that context being there, when we get to a film like Blackula, which I'm gonna show y'all the trailer for, there is this one critical point about the film that a lot of folks miss. So I'm gonna play the trailer for y'all, and then I'm gonna share that point. Have any of y'all seen Blackula? No? Heard of it? No. Okay, we got one in the room. Bless up.
You shall pay, Black Prince. I press you with my name. You shall be Blackula. Blackula. The Black Avenger. Rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blackula, Dracula's soul brother. Deadlier even than he. You know, he is a strange dude.
You're a nut that ran in front of my cab.
So y'all, okay, we gotta stop there. First of all, they real shady for calling him Dracula's soul brother. Because here's the gag, is that Blackula, Prince Mamuwalde, goes to Dracula because he wants support. He wants support in ending the slave trade. This is like how the film starts. A prince from the continent goes to Dracula on some, hey girl, you wanna be an ally? Dracula's like, nah, in fact, I'm gonna entomb you, I'm gonna take your girl. And when she refuses, he entombs both of them. But he has given Blackula the curse of vampirism. And there is this wild moment where Dracula has a whole monologue, like leaning over the casket. You know, it's like, I'm gonna curse you with a desire for, unending desire for blood. And my first thought My first thought hearing that was, you swap out blood for freedom, and that's why he came to talk to you in the first place, was to end the international institution that was about the exploitation and dehumanization of Black people. But that gets absolutely lost by the time we're like 12 minutes into the movie. And so part of what I keep wanting to do is go back, just like Devan goes back into these archives to help reframe how it is that we understand tarot, how we understand the imagery that's connected to it, but also the historical production of these various decks. Or really, like, it's the Rider-Waite deck, right? Right? So recasting or giving us a whole new understanding of this cultural object that many of us hold near and dear. I'm like, oh, we can do a version of that with Blaxploitation. What we have up here is some material from the press kit. So at Johns Hopkins University, they've got this collection of Black film-related materials, screenplays, and ephemera. And there is a vampire protection kit that a number of movie theaters would give to the customers that come in. And I just think so much about what it means to give these folks a vampire protection kit so that they can defend themselves against a Black man who went to a potential ally, but then was betrayed and given this curse of vampirism. And now he's somebody who we have to protect ourselves from. There is a really insidious bait and switch that happens in this film. And then adding insult to injury, we get this protection kit. And so now I keep trying to figure out creatively, how do I take this object, which you open an envelope, and one of the things that's still in it is a bay leaf. It went to sleep on me real quick. One of the things that's in it is a bay leaf. And so I'm like, we're gonna take that bay leaf off because I don't know what to do with that. But it's the imagery. I keep trying to figure out if this vampire protection kit became something else. Something that was about, I don't know, locating people who also want freedom, right? Figuring out a way to create this little piece of ephemera that's about signaling to folks, no, we're in this shit together, and so we're going to overturn it, even if it's just briefly. No, that's the way. Y'all don't see anything? I also just want to say briefly, okay, while this is getting worked out, there's a whole separate conversation to be had about technology and anti-Blackness. I've got episodes of TV shows, okay? There is Sophia Noble's Algorithms of Oppression. If you don't know it, get in there. It is fantastic and a glorious algorithmic mess. But there's also Google, who, this is Dr. Carter's B-sides, so bear with me. There's also Google, who years ago, when they had image recognition software to help people identify themselves in photographs that they loaded to the search engine, Black people were misidentified as apes, gorillas, primates. There was the HP PhotoSmart computer that came out just over years ago, where they were boasting the arrival of this new technology that would detect a face and allow you to make whatever kind of edits you needed to. This piece, thank you, because historically camera technology focuses on light reflecting off of surfaces, has some difficulty detecting Black skin. Now, that side tech lecture, okay, done with. There's this piece, back to Sonia Sanchez, who I mentioned in relation to Toni Morrison. You know, the Blaxploitation stuff kind of brings me back into the 1960s, wanting to sit with and really kind of be nosy when it comes to correspondence between Black artists. And so here we've got a letter from writer Hoyt Fuller. So it is from Etheridge Knight to Hoyt Fuller. And I just want to read some of it to y'all. Dear Hoyt, just a few lines to invite you to me and Sonia Sanchez's wedding. It'll be held at 3 p.m. at the Afro-American Bookstore at 2264 North Meridian Street on Saturday, April 26th. Since we're poor and Black, it'll be a simple, poor Black thing. Beautiful. We'll have a kind of reception at the bookstore from 7 to 9 p.m. And later on, we'll have a kind of private, relaxing thing at Mari Evans's place. And so, you know, one of the things that I love about this piece is that simple, poor Black thing. and how spare it is. Considering glitter, considering sequins, I kept thinking about how even when you have a simple, poor Black thing, like this humble wedding reception between two Black poets, two Black artists, they find a way to make it so lush, expansive, so inviting. And I'm like, and the nerve of y'all having it at a bookstore, but then you also gonna have this reception at the other poet's house, right? There were just like these little moments of communication where I'm like, ooh, I wish I could be y'all friend. I'm sure it was also tacky and messy and extremely complicated, but moth to a flame, like, let's go. More and more and more, okay? All right, so I've been talking at y'all for a little bit. I wanna share a few more things with y'all, and then we can just chop it up. Is that cool? Yeah, y'all doing all right? All right, cool. Sorry, Devan, come back another time, okay? There's a moment. This is a page from the journal of a writer, a theorist named Hortense Spillers. Spillers is one of these scholars who helped redefine the relationship between Blackness, psychoanalysis, and literature. She has also helped create a language around theorizing Blackness, bodies, and abjection. I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. There are people who have spent their scholarly careers thinking with Hortense Spillers' work. Her papers are now in Brown University, which is down the street from where I live in Rhode Island. And so I've spent some time over the last few years just reading her personal journals. And it's this entry from 1970 that stays with me. And it's really just the first few words. I go home in Roberta Flack. If y'all have never heard Roberta Flack's music, she passed recently. If you have not heard it, please make a note to listen to it. Classically trained, absolute stunner of a musician. But so it's with this passage that I reached out to Professor Spillers, and knowing from one sentence in the long bio that she had on her faculty website, knowing from that one sentence that when she was in her 20s, living in Memphis and attending Memphis State, she was a DJ. She was a DJ at WDIA radio, and this was a white-owned radio station and the only one in the country at the time that catered to Black audiences. And so I was like, well, I want to talk with you about music, and I'm also not going to write a piece arguing with scholars about the significance of your relationship to music, right? She writes about, in her personal journals, everything from buying a stereo to seeing B.B. King and Sarah Vaughan when she's traveling in Europe in the 1980s. She writes about Aretha, she writes about Dinah Washington, like the list goes on and on and on, Duke Ellington. And I'm like, I really just wanted a moment to hang out with this one little detail about her that nobody had written about at that point. So I wrote her and I asked if we can collaborate. It was like, if you will send me a list of your favorite songs, I will design a broadside. And the whole idea is to celebrate her love of music. And so she sent me a list. It's nothing like I expected. This is a beautiful surprise. And I got to make this piece called Tensy's Top Hits. It was me sitting in front of a computer, learning Photoshop by watching YouTube over here and then having Photoshop open over here. And so we get her list of tracks, but then we have this really wonderful passage from her journal. She had a studio visit with a photographer, so we got some of the images for that. And then I just love that her on-air name was Tensy. It does things. Like, first, your name is Hortense. Hortense Jeanette Spillers, that's a name, okay? But Tensy just does a different thing, at least to like the shape of my cheeks and my tongue. And I'm just like, Tensy all day. Create this piece, worked with a community printer in Tucson to print it, and then add the border and the banner at the top are metallic silver, right? And so gifting this to her a couple weeks ago, I knew I couldn't just send her prints. And so I worked with a bindery in Providence to create these limited edition folios that are just called Tensy, just to ship her a stack. And then I had like a short list of artists where I'm just like, it's care package season, so I'm just gonna send these randomly to different artists. And so much of doing this is about encouraging folks to linger in these older stories, but to also, I don't know, just have fun making shit that might only have a community of 10 that really value and cherish it. This is in part also how Black Revelry came to be. And I wanna end with this. Black Revelry uses the logic of the sample or the detail, if we're talking about visual language here, to hang out with a painting. This is a project that came to be just before the pandemic started, and once it was underway, couldn't even hang out with my collaborators. We talked on Zoom, and we emailed, and we took notes and texted on WhatsApp, right? We were in different countries. Most of us were based in the US. I think at a few moments, some people were in Germany, but my main collaborators at an organization called If I Can't Dance, I Don't Want to Be a Part of the Revolution, they were based in Amsterdam. So we wanted to take this painting and sample different components of it. Now, it's a sprawl of a book. It looks like a vinyl LP because the introduction is spoken and it's on vinyl. So you open it up, one side has vinyl. It also has the colophon information. But the gag is that for one little pocket of time, I got to take research funding, hit up artists and be like, hey, you wanna play? And if you do, I can pay you. It was like, for the writers who contributed, they created these different colored sheets, right, that have like little details on them. These are all like ekphrastic text. The front side will have a detail, and it'll also have the title of the piece. There will be a song that's listed on the bottom, and also a drink to pair, because I love a pairing. And so you flip the piece around, then it's gonna be 250 to 300 words, where it's a vivid description of how they want us to enter this painting. There's a cocktail napkin that says, this is how you hold a stranger, based on a conversation I had with two choreographers, Dwayne Holland and Jennifer Harge. There is transcript of a performance lecture. There is a short critical piece written by DJ scholar Lene Denise. There are set lists for a Black Revelry radio show that I hosted that aired in Berlin, Amsterdam, and LA across 3 months. And this is a show that was based on the records that I inherited from my dad and my aunts, right? I use that as the source material. And so it's playing music, it's sharing stories, it's being the historical gossip that I absolutely love to be. And because I worked with really fantastic designers, Carolyn Swazinski was the graphic designer for this. And she was like, her and Megan, who's the curator that I worked with, they were like, well, you know, Dee, what we can do is frame the objects or make the objects the ideal size for being placed into various size frames. So if you go to a store and buy a frame for a 12-inch vinyl LP, all of the ekphrastic text fit inside of that frame, right? The smaller pieces, if you got a frame for a 45, they fit all the smaller pieces. And so we envisioned a book that would not have a traditional spine, would not have a traditional layout, allowed us to hang out with a work of art, listen to some music, drink, and kick it across the expanse. Right? And so once this project was completed, we did an installation for it. I believe in what I consider Black iteration, right? Like a project is going to live, it's going to grow, it's going to have its own life. This thing has been an installation. A year after it was released, it became a cocktail called Everything But the Kitchen Sink. There's this fantastic bartender. You can follow her on Instagram. It is, what's her handle? Chicken and Champagne. Okay, Chicken and Champagne, I reached out to her, her name's Denicia, said, hey, I really want to make a bottled cocktail to go with this project. And so we sat and we built out. You get a wonderful little box. I think we did an edition of maybe 50. You get this wonderful box, you open it up, and in this little satin bag, you got a bottled cocktail. Okay? You also have incense. You get some of the cocktail napkins from the book. And you also get QR codes for the Quiet Storm radio shows, the Black Revelry shows. And so over and over and over, it's about constant returns. It's about figuring out ways to help audiences feel invited to sit with art, to sit with music, to sit with history, and just be wrapped up in it, okay? All right, so we're gonna end with this. Gail Jones is this brilliant poet and novelist and recluse. She won all these awards, 80s and 90s, and then she bounced off the scene. It's just like, nah, I ain't dealing with y'all no more, which fair, because have you met people, right? So Jones in the 1970s, when she was a graduate student at Brown, her advisor, poet Michael Harper, sent her first manuscript, her first novel, to an editor at Random House, Toni Morrison. And Morrison sat with this manuscript. She avoided it for weeks. And then one day, just before running errands with her son, she decided I would sit with it. She opened it up, started combing through the pages, and she lost time. Like, before she knew it, her sons are banging on the door asking when they're going to leave. Her leg had fallen asleep, it was folded under her. And she writes this really beautiful piece for Mademoiselle magazine about books that she loves. And she has this glowing endorsement for Corregidor, which is the title of Gail Jones's first novel, which Morrison subsequently edited. And she says, you know, after this book, she says, Gail Jones had changed the terms. After this, no book, no novel written by a Black woman would ever be the same. It's one of the most gorgeous, stunning reflections. And so as I read, because again, nosy, as I read correspondence from Gail Jones to Toni Morrison, which is at Columbia University in the Random House records, just came across this one brief note that felt so tender and so necessary. And I just like an underlined thank you. It's so formal, dear Miss Morrison. Thank you, love Gail. And so with that, I want to say thank y'all for riding with me, for kicking it. And, you know, email me at any time. I'm around. Holla at your girl. Okay? Thank y'all so much.